Here's a question for you.
Okay.
Have you ever, I mean, you went to college,
Yep.
so you spent a lot of time like, the reason why I'm asking is college football just started again.
Mm-hmm.
And, I get pretty into it. Like, just the youths in
Yeah.
particular watch the games pretty religiously and like to follow it. Do you have any stories or situations that took place in stadiums? Not like obviously it's plenty of stories when you're like at a friend's house watching a football game, but do you have any like fun experiences or stories that you can highlight that took place uh like at Rice-Eccles Stadium?
So Eccles, you can't do it anymore. You used to be able to leave at halftime. You'd stamp your hand.
Mhm.
You come back and you can't do that anymore.
Mhm.
But I lived a block away, so we had plenty of times you would leave at halftime and you would come back in a different state of mind. Like you went and worked on it, and then you were back at it. And the main year, like the biggest year we were there when I lived right by the stadium, that was the Urban Meyer year. It was a good year to follow the Utes.
Yeah.
The first one, the Fiesta Bowl in Arizona,
Yeah.
2004, maybe, probably.
Mhm.
But that was a lot of fun. But the better story is when I met my now wife, and we just really I doubled down on the art of getting alcohol into Rice-Eccles Stadium. That being like, we don't need to leave. We can get it in there, and we can get it in there in quantities you would not believe, and we're gonna do it. So Annie and I would duct tape like full bottles of whiskey to our legs, and you walk right in, and then you would go in and like you'd show up with a couple bottles of booze, like to bring into the muss. Like you've hit the gold mine. The one of the favorite things I did was or one of the funniest stories is like I usually wouldn't just do whiskey. I'd be like, oh, I'm gonna get a Coke, right? And you go, and I would at first I'd order a large Coke, they'd fill it to the top. I'm like, what the fuck am I gonna do with this? And then I would go into the bathroom, I'd go into the stall, and the only thing everyone else heard in the bathroom was just 12 ounces of liquid entering the toilet. Just just and some ice hitting the like who knows what the guy next to me in the stall thought. He was just like, fucking hot dogs are hitting today. Like I don't know. But I would come in with like the most potent Jack and Coke, basically.
Mhm.
And I did that for a while. And then I had like these retractable shot glasses that you could just fit in like your wallet, and then you pull it out and be like, and then we would, and we'd be able to do shots. And I had this reputation that was just like, yeah, Nick's here. He doesn't watch the game. He doesn't even look. He's looking the other way most of the time, right? I'm just there to party.
Yeah.
But the best thing I did by a mile, I had dislocated my shoulder a few times at this point. So to see me in a sling is not uncommon. But I showed up at my friend's house, our mutual friends, the day before the game, and I had a Costco box of Go-Gurts, and I put it on their coffee table, and I'll be like, I'll be back in a few hours. It needs to be empty. I need all the Go-Gurt containers. And I came back, and they'd done good work. Just eating Go-Gurts, just fucking eating Go-Gurts and giving me the plastic receptacle.
Yeah.
Right. So we took the plastic receptacle back to my wife's house that she lived at, and we made a fuckload of Jello shots.
Okay.
And we filled all the Go-Gurts with Jello shots, folded them over themselves, and stapled them. All lot, right? But now you're like, well, what do I do with all these Jello shots? And I was like, well, clearly we're gonna bring the sling out. It was the sling. And then my arms just wrapped in Go-Gurt Jello shots, like hidden in the sling, right?
Yeah.
And I just showed up into the student section, and people are like, "Oh, you hurt your arm," and I'm like, "Not today. We're doing Jello shots." Like I was an absolute menace.
Yeah, that's pretty good.
It was, I had a great time at the games, but yeah, I rarely paid attention, but we were always very good. So it was usually we were up by a lot of points as well.
The Muss is a fun time. I am not an alumni, but I have spent some time in the Muss myself. I lived with a guy that was like one of those people that just goes to college forever. like Van Wilder,
Yeah,
if you remember that
yeah.
movie where
You just never left.
he just never left. Like it took him a long time to get a degree,
No.
and so he had like a companion pass for the Muss, right?
Mm.
And mind you, he was like pretty, I mean, not old, but he was like older than the average age.
Person in the muss.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And I was like more acceptable age. I was probably like 20, 21,
Sure.
you know? Uh, and yeah, like for a full season, I just like pretended that I was a student of the University of Utah and fit in pretty well and had a really, really good time. There's lots of stories that I can't tell on the podcast about like just fully
Mm.
embracing like at tailgates and stuff like that, interacting with like women and things like that. And just pretended that I was like a student.
Great.
They
Yeah.
were like,
Sure.
when am I going to see you again? And it's like, I don't know, like we might have a class together.
I-
And it's just like,
You
in
just
actuality, I'm like fucking going to a job.
You're like, we're never
I
gonna-
work 40 hours a week, my dear.
I don't have chem.
Yeah,
Like, I don't
exactly.
have.
Exactly. Which is like, it's a pretty shit. Like, to be fair, it's a pretty shitty thing to just like lie to someone like that. But you know, you do foolish things when you're
Oh.
young. But I do have a couple of stories, not about sneaking booze in. The first time I ever went to the MUS, which for anybody that doesn't know, the MUS stands for the Mighty Utah Student Section, which is like the student section at the University of Utah, and it's pretty raucous. Like it's a smaller stadium when you compare it to like some of the larger stadiums in the country for college football. There's not like 100,000 people, but it gets very loud from like an architectural standpoint. Like there are reasons why it gets very loud in there. People do not like to come and play in Salt Lake City because of that, which is something that they take great pride in.
Sure.
It was a little quiet today after Cam Rising hurt his fingers, but we still won, so it was all right. But the first time I ever went there, it must have changed quite a bit between your Go-Gurt days and the days when I went, because I just remember people just like actively passing around like bottles of liquor around. And the first time I ever went in there, there was this kid in front of us that we didn't know, but he had like one of those obnoxious bottles of Smirnoff that like they were textured. I don't know if they still make them the way that they do now, but it was like kind of like swirled and textured. But anyways, he was just like giving everyone in his row the bottle of vodka, and like people were just slamming it, right?
Nice.
And so the guy I was with was like, pass it back here. And so the dude did, and he fucking passed it back to my friend, and he took a big shot of it and handed it to me, and I took a big shot of it and immediately dropped it on the ground and it shattered.
No. Oh, man.
And like there wasn't a lot left, but he was just like, "What the fuck, man?" And like got really upset, and I don't blame him. Like I felt
Sure.
really
Yeah,
bad about it. I was just like, dude, it slipped out of my hand. It was like rainy, I think,
Good
or something
Lord.
like that. So that was a pretty embarrassing situation.
We beat the Utes one year, or we beat the Cougars one year. That's our rivalry, BYU.
Yeah.
And we rushed the field like you do.
Yeah.
We took the goalpost down,
Mm-hmm.
and then the large group of us, we had it. And they're like, what are you gonna do? And we're like, let's take it up the stairs and throw it off the backside of the student section from the top. It's
Okay.
a long fall, right?
Yeah.
Seems like a good idea. Like this seems like the type of thing you should do. Well, we took it up there, and there were a bunch of fucking people there, and the first thought through everyone's head wasn't like, well, this is a bad idea. It was move out of the way. People were yelling at like the people leaving the stadium. That didn't work. And then literally one of our friends who lived with me was like, we live close by, let's take it to our house. So we marched it out the front door. I don't know where it didn't go to our house. I don't know if eventually everyone got tired and just like put it down.
Is it like, yeah, I've never done that before. Are they heavy? Is it heavy?
Well, there's too many people. You have so many people.
Yeah,
that
it doesn't
No
matter.
one's really carrying any weight.
Yeah.
Not really a big deal. But yeah, I wonder if he remembers what happened, because it definitely It didn't make it to our front yard. We probably would have gotten in trouble if it did, because it would have been like, clearly they did it. Clearly those are the guys to arrest. Like,
Did they let you out of the stadium with it though?
there was a big gate over there, and there was once the field has been rushed, like there's nothing that anyone can do. It's like chaos.
Yeah.
You got like 20
right
like police officers around there. Like,
yeah. Another story that I have that I think is very funny. I got two, but I'll give you this one first. So like, I don't know, like third or fourth time that I went there, we were playing, I think like Colorado, I'm pretty sure. And the guy that got me in, he got absolutely annihilated drunk. And he was friend. I don't know how, because he was not like an athlete. Well, he was an athlete, but he wasn't like, he didn't play any sports at the school. But he just knew a bunch of like the youth football players and like previous football players. And one of the previous, I'm not going to name drop or anything like that, but he knew one of the defensive players from, I don't think he was playing at the time, obviously, because we were watching the Utes, but he did play for the team at one point in time. And he's like a well-known dude. And he's massive, like a massive individual. So we went to a bar with him, and then we went to the stadium, and my friend got so fucking drunk that like he couldn't even walk. Like he was so fucked up. And he was like fine at first, and like it's bleachers seating obviously, and nobody sits anyway, so you're just like all standing on the bleachers. And I remember he was just like so fucking drunk, and he was screaming "fuck you ASU" over and over again. Now mind you, we were playing Colorado.
Yeah, so, but he doesn't like ASU either.
He was like, "Fuck you, like... ASU," and everybody was like, "Dude, we're not playing ASU." And he was just like, "It's still applicable. Like it still applies."
I agree with him, honestly. I'm still on his side.
But he was like passionately trying to get people in the stands to like chant with him, and everybody was just like, "What is happening?" And then like, that was like at the beginning of the game. And then by like the third quarter, he was almost like not awake, like passed out. And I just remember he did pass out and was standing and like just not able to stand. And this big giant dude, this football player, he was wearing a jacket, and he just held him by the like the hood of his jacket, and he just like tipped over and just held him there like for a long period of time. And it was just like so surreal, because my friends passed the fuck out, standing up still, basically being held up by this mountain of a man.
Some of those football players, no joke.
Yeah.
We went to the University of Wyoming when we would play them, when we were in the Mountain West. And we went to the game, and my friend was a liability. He was throwing beer cans onto the field. We didn't get in trouble, but I was pretty on my game. I was not. I should have been drunker, I'll tell you that. But I was not. We went to a house party. Now we're in Wyoming, so this was not a youth house party, right? Yeah. So you gotta, at least in your head, you're like, yeah, keep your shit together. And two of my friends did not. So we're trying to fucking leave this place because a few football players showed up from Wyoming, and we were talking to them, and they were actually complaining to us. It's kind of funny that the youth team had a number of linebackers that were return missionaries, and they said it's not fair. They're older and they have old man strength, and they were really upset about it. They're like, it's just not fair. But anyway, very large dudes. Like I'm 6'1", but like these dudes just like make me look tiny.
Right.
And one of our friends leaves, and as he leaves, he says some cheeky fucking remark, like better luck next year or something, as we're walking out the door. We get outside, we get to the car, and we're like, we're missing the other fucker. He's still in there. And I'm like, I'll go get him. So I go back in, and I find our friend over the stove, and he's there was a bunch of chicken like in sauce, and he was picking it out with his hand from like the pot and then eating it and putting the bone back in like the sauce. And I'm like, you can't do that. And then I got interrupted because I'm like, you're gonna get us in a lot of trouble. And then the football player looked at me and he said, "You're the fucker that just said that remark that I did not say."
Yeah.
And he grabbed me by the shirt and threw me against the wall. I have never been ragdolled in such a way that I was just like, "Oh, I'm gonna die over this shit," because like this dude just like manhandled me, and I was like, I didn't say anything. I'm trying to eat my friend. He just needs protein, and he's working on that. I think he's done now. We're gonna leave, and like somehow this guy did not murder me, but like it's like the only time I've just literally been thrown against a wall and been like, I wouldn't even fight. There's just no reason. There's just no reason to even like attempt. It would just be like,
just like
it
curl
was like,
up in a ball and hope for the
I
best.
had a good run.
Yeah. Yeah, you don't realize, like, I mean, you can see on TV and you see like the stats. You're like, oh, that person's like 300 pounds
Yeah.
and like 6'3" or whatever. But then when you're there, you're like, oh my God, dude, like these, like you see them in person, they're fucking mountains of individuals. So, so last one I'll give you. This does not involve Rice Cycles, but this involves our professional soccer team, Real Salt Lake. And, for a long period of time, I went to a lot of games. I don't do it as much anymore. I go to like 1 or 2 a year, but I still follow the team religiously and watch as many games as I possibly can. But our like MLS rival is the Colorado Rapids. And that's like more like pushed on us. It's called the Rocky Mountain Rivalry, which is super fucking cringy.
Yeah,
But
fuck you, ASU, when you go to the games.
yeah, I always fuck you, ASU. But like the fan base does not really look at Colorado as like a rival, and it's not. I don't think it's because like
it's a marketing rival.
It's a marketing rival, yeah. But like we don't really have super bad blood with them. Like there are some situations that you can highlight where it's like, oh yeah, that fuels the rivalry. And there is like a inconsequential cup that you win that the fans get to keep at the end of the season. Whatever winning fans get to keep it. So, so like for instance, there's
me. Can I have the cup at my house?
Yeah.
Like, how does that work?
Well, it's like a supporter section.
Okay.
Like whoever the president of the supporter section, they get to keep it.
So I got to become the president.
Well, it's not necessarily the president, but it's like they pass the cup around through the supporter sections at the stadium, right?
I want the cup on this fucking table.
It's a pretty lame cup. It's pretty lame. It looks like they got it at like fucking Target or some shit like that and put some streamers on it. They just took it from us. We've had it for like the last like 5 or 6 seasons consecutively. And unfortunately lost it this year. So it's in some fuck's house in Colorado right now. But anyways, Colorado is not really Real Salt Lake's rival. The actual rival that really gets a lot of hate from the fan base, myself included, is Sporting Kansas City. There is like a number of reasons why that is. We don't need to go into it, but it's a pretty heated rivalry and it's an organic rivalry. We don't like each other, right? So a number of years ago, me and drunk ASU friend went to a lot of through lines with this crazy person. We went to a soccer game together and we were playing Sporting Kansas City. And it is always like, obviously because they're in the Midwest, they don't get a lot of support to travel out to their away games, but they do have like a pretty diehard following. So they'll be like a good, like a decent amount of traveling fans. So randomly, we were walking to a game one time and we ran into like a giant group of Sporting Kansas City fans that had like flown here to watch a game. And we were like wearing scarves and like jerseys and shit like that. And we walked by them and they were like super cool to us. Right. They're like, what's up? Like, and they had this kiddie pool that they brought that was just full of like beer and shit like that. Right. And they were like, you want a beer? You want to like, hang out? And we were like, what the fuck? Because like they knew and we knew like we don't like each other. So we were like, cool. And so we're in like the sea of people. They gave us beer. They were like, talking to us, but like kind of condescendingly. And at this point in time, they were definitely a better team than Real Salt Lake was. Not anymore, fuckers. But at the time, they absolutely were. And so they were they were nice, but like in like a little brother kind of way, kind of condescending to us. And the guy I'm with is like foolishly mouthy. Like he's not the type of dude that's gonna like fight anyone. Well, he would absolutely fight someone. Whether he would win would be another story entirely. But he kind of like ribbed him a little bit, and we had our beer, and then we went into the stadium and watched the game, right? And they ended up beating us, and it was like a close game, and it was really shitty, and we were like both pretty pissed. We had drank quite a bit in the stadium at the bar, and then like at our seats and things like that. So as we're leaving, the SKC supporters were still outside, but like there was far less of them because most of them were in the stadium, but they had left their kiddie pool full of beer still. And so my buddy that I was with was like, let's go steal all their fucking beer. And so I'm like, yeah, that's a good idea.
So
let's
go
fucking
wrong?
do it. So we go over to this little like area where they had set up like their tailgate, and we just start grabbing fucking beers and just stuffing them in like our pockets. It was like later in the year, so like we had hoodies on and jackets, and we filled like every single possible pocket that we had on our persons just full of fucking beer. And as this is happening, we're like loading up. A big ass group of these dudes start coming back from the game, and they see us and they're like, what the fuck? And they start like running at us, dude. And both of us just look at each other. I remember vividly looking at each other, and we just took off. And like, because we both had so much beer, like beers were falling out of our pockets and like breaking on the ground. And they chased us for a good while until we got to, it was like on the corner of the block where the stadium is at. We like rounded the corner, and then there's like a parking not garage, but like parking area where our car was. And they chased us into that. But because it's where there's two tailgates at Real Salt Lake Stadium before the games for like home supporters, and it's a pretty big lot. It's like a dirt lot. And we both like went different ways and hid like in lines of cars. And it was like kind of fucking nervy because I was like, I'm going to get my ass beat by a bunch of fucking Midwestern dudes for stealing their beer. Kind of like rightfully
for good
so.
reason. I think you're the bad guy in this story.
I'm pretty
sure you're the bad guy.
Absolutely. But because we split up, they couldn't find us, right? Like they were like looking all over for us and like screaming and yelling and like saying a bunch of shit because they beat us and they were like, talking shit. And we somehow like avoided them and then got in a car. And then my friend was like, this is a good idea. Let's just drive by them again and then like roll down the window and just like talk shit to them. So that's what we did. We were like, fuck you. We got all your beers, motherfuckers. And they were like flipping us off. Like it was a ridiculous situation. So
fantastic.
Sports are fun.
I like the story where you're the bad guy. It's great. It's ideal. It's perfect.